today. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Things are mooky, okay? Things are way too mooky. Things are moving at light speed. We move on to topics incredibly quickly, and I feel like Star Wars has already been left in the dust, and I'm happy about it.
Well, dude, my opinion from basically the day after we recorded the other one, my opinion was different.
Right.
From how it was when we recorded.
And this one in particular,
it was changing daily almost because there was so much to talk about with people that it was hard to not either like reinforce things that you thought or start to be like, oh wait, maybe I wasn't looking at that.
I mean, like the nuance got, as it does with social media conversations, got lost very, very quickly. Right. How it went from the reviews are incredibly high to, oh, there's some people who have issues with it. Oh, there's some people who think it's SJW wars now, but they're not the same as the people who have some actual structural concerns with it. And before you know it,
there was two sides. There was like and dislike, but then there was multiple factions on each side.
Right.
And then when you would discuss it with somebody, there would be the moment where it's like, oh, no, I'm on like 6 levels above of dispute. Like I've seen this movie 5 times, and now I'm arguing about the minutia, and you're still talking about like the green milk. Like that's still your problem.
But I think back to, I think I've realized multiple times in conversations with people that because of the way it's been framed and the way that this particular movie is being debated, that I've sort of realized, I mean, I don't think it's perfect, but I realize that I sound like one of the people who thinks it is because I think there's a lot of criticism of it that is fundamentally just
you're having to match that energy when you're arguing because nobody ever on either side, no one responds to you like calmly saying what you think is wrong with it or what you like about it.
Do you know how like I have to, when I hit the reply button on Facebook or Twitter, I need to care about this thing more than I've cared about anything in my entire life. Just to hit the button. And then to write more than 2 sentences, it has to be the most important thing that I've ever felt in my entire life.
I've noticed I've been going against extremities, which is sort of, and I hate to be the middle ground person in general, but sort of when people say, that was terrible, my response is, it's just not.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like it just isn't.
There's too much money there. It's terrible.
You know, but at the same time, I would also have that urge if someone said it is perfect and there is nothing wrong with it. So it's that strange thing where I largely fall into the liked it camp. Having said that, on my first viewing, and I have seen it 5 times, but I'll always remind myself on that first viewing, I had issues with it too. So it's not even a case of, oh, I was blinded by my love the first time.
Do you think that
Well, wait, before we proceed forward, let me do a quick introduction. Welcome to Reasonable 2018. Back to 2018. We decided to open up 2018 with the same way we closed 2017. We're picking back up from Star Wars. Fortunately, Lyle could not make it to pick back up, but instead I got my other favorite voice on this, TimH. I have been following your opinions on this from the jump. You did come across to me as like one of the people who I thought really, really enjoyed the flick.
I did.
So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad your perspective is here. And I'll admit that I have changed my ways as well.
Yeah.
I've come around on this movie, and I just want to come out and say that I thought about what I think my big issue with it was. And there definitely was a part of it that it wasn't what I wanted it to be. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, which is a hard one to grapple with, even when you're trying to be honest with yourself.
Exactly, and I found it hard to be honest with myself, actually, because I'm like, oh, wait, maybe I am being kind of a curmudgeon about it. But my other big issue was that there seemed to be this big fandom growing around this movie in particular that like really blew out the Star Wars fandom, and I didn't feel like the movie was sound enough for that fandom to exist within it, where I'm like, what do you guys, what are these big moments that you guys like? You know what I mean? Like I was questioning the fandom, like I couldn't, there was no big moment in that movie that like really stuck with me, like even the Force Awakens. I just kind of thought that it was kind of a meandering, plotting movie.
Yeah, when the Force Awakens in this one wasn't a great moment.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
I was like, that wasn't big enough. Why is everybody such a fan of this? When you see that weirdly enough, it just looked like J.J. Abrams, and he just wakes up in space and goes, whoa! Damn, I was dozed off there for a minute. Thank God.
Oh, fuck.
Sorry, that was not
I
worth
don't know
a little bit of disrupting you.
I was like, so here's the thing. You said something, and I'm like, I think that was a joke. I'm going to try and let him go with it until I could suss out what the joke was.
I wonder already if maybe partially because of how we prefaced this conversation, whether every single one of us is going to kind of go against what... So, for instance, my initial reactions were very positive.
Right.
And because I have praised it a lot, I'm coming to this going... Time to say about my problems with it. And the other way around, people who were more negative first time are like, let me tell you some things I did like.
We spend all this time with people, I guess maybe like-minded people almost, where I'm sick of talking about how bad it was. I want to talk about some of the good things. And then, here we go, vice versa.
Well, we were also never, though, saying how bad it was.
Yes. I was, a little bit.
We've probably said this in the other one. I don't really remember, but it's personal in a way that's something that movies usually don't even get to be ever, where it's like again, this is why it was hard to be honest with yourself. You don't realize when you're leading up that you do have because I thought we were going in so objective. Like I pride myself. I feel like most of us usually we sit down and we're like, let's just see what it does. I mean, that's the whole point of this thing too. What was it up to, this podcast? I mean, what was it doing? Did it succeed? Well, where was it good at what it was trying to do? But then still, it's fucking Star Wars though, man. And for 2 years we were just sitting around thinking about what Luke was going to be like, and then
I was having an interesting conversation with Jack about it afterwards, where. And it's interesting because it's Star Wars is maybe an even more specific case of this, because I can't think of a franchise that has a more sort of not my Star Wars component to it.
Right.
For instance, maybe James Bond is in that same thing where if he doesn't feel like James Bond, and if he doesn't go around and sleep with women, and if I don't get my stuff, if I don't get my James Bond stuff, I'm gonna just, even if it's good, even if it's a good movie, I'm probably gonna, there are people who will just take issue with it.
Right. Like Half-Blood Prince, when that was, Harry wasn't, I didn't like what Harry. He was doing. He wasn't the right actor for it. Luckily they course corrected.
But I think with Star Wars, what's then interesting is, and somehow The Force Awakens, I think, managed to avoid this, maybe partially by being a sort of a greatest hits CD of totally. Just stuff you knew.
Sure.
But there are, I suppose, people who grew up with the prequels, people who grew up with Rebels, people who played the toys, played the games, people who are the original fans of the original trilogy, of whatever age you are, it's probably a fan base that everyone has a very specific idea of what a Star Wars movie is and what should and shouldn't belong in a Star Wars movie.
Oh, absolutely.
And because I would say, to the point that I actually, for instance, if we want to bring up the milk as an example, I'll always remind that as something where I was, having seen it multiple times, I realized, creatively it's perfectly fine. Like, we're going to show what Luke's routine was. Right. Having said that, I don't know. Seeing it in a Star Wars movie, I was like, I don't love that creative choice. That was my first reaction to it, was just, I don't want to see that. Why are we doing this? Yeah. And what's interesting, or just even the big fish, I just went, and there are things like that, again, having seen it multiple times, I can go, within this film, it's not necessarily outrageous that they did that, but there is sometimes, you just have moments where you go, that's not what a Star Wars movie is.
It expands the universe with every single breath. It expands the universe slightly more, and when it takes it in directions that you're like, oh, that's not congruent with what I thought. Okay, green titty milk, that's fine. For whatever reason, that never didn't strike me as odd. Like, when I saw the movie, I was like, yeah, of course, I guess they've done like weird alien shit before, and I guess he's being kind of a strange hermit.
I think there's something weird about the fact that when you talk about how this expands the universe, I don't think it took a circle and made a bigger circle. I think it took a circle, and then around the circle are different fucking triangles that are just like, we're going out a little bit here, like this direction. Casino.
Yep. Yeah,
but then you're right back. Then you go right back into the circle that we know. So I think that people, you're reacting to like.
Yeah. And I will also say that you said it within the template of Star Wars, with the screen wipes, with the music, with the attitude. Whereas Bond kind of switches it up radically with each thing, where this is this character, and aesthetically they're very different. The music can sound radically different.
I agree.
With Star Wars, I feel like, because you do have those, what would you even call those? I guess just like congruent franchise aesthetics, right? Where they just reuse. It sets everything in the same Star Wars template. Fucks.
I'm ready for
fucks
a
you up.
new
It messed
font.
me up.
You know, that's my big petition.
Yes.
New font on
that's
Star
the thing.
Wars.
And if there was a new font, if you watched episode 9, suddenly there was a new font, you would be like, what the fuck?
One of the jokes we were
genuinely
making
fuck
when
things
we
up.
sat down for the first press screening in the UK. So it was the first UK screening, and we all sat down and we went, what if the font was red?
Yeah.
And I went, I would be mad.
Yeah.
Like it's
weird.
like I think
Like the quiet certainty.
genuinely, if Star Wars, same music and everything, it was just red instead of yellow, I would go, sure, I don't like it.
What do we
Like
do?
I can tell that's how I do.
I think last week you made the joke of like, what if it was just "Walking on Sunshine" by Katrina and the Waves instead of the theme? I forget what
It
song.
wouldn't be. I don't know what I said.
The Star Wars
Our
theme.
House by Madness.
In a sense, didn't you feel it a little bit in Rogue One when it just opened? And here's the thing: smart branding in that it said, hey, this isn't like the main episodes, and as a result was able to accomplish that. But I remember when the movie just started, and then when Rogue One appeared, I do remember just going, it's different. And you feel it deep down. You like feel that it's not the same.
Slight weird. This isn't quite on top. I mean, I guess it's Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Fucking stirs.
Star Wars.
But do you think for the new trilogy, the removed from Skywalker saga trilogy, is it going to be the Star Wars theme when it opens? Probably, right?
Yeah.
I think because I think something I've. Yeah,
but
I know what you're getting at.
for a second you're like, but why would it? Would it? Because there's times where that theme is almost even in the first one.
It depends on the brandings of what it's called. So Rogue One is called Rogue One: A Star Wars Story.
Right,
correct?
but they don't use the Star Wars theme at all.
Exactly, and it's called Rogue One. So what I'm saying is, in
it's
these
called
three
Star
trilogies,
Wars, right.
if they're called Star Wars,
Right.
the Star Wars theme, and this shit is very interesting. No, but you're right.
Weird choice.
But what is this called? It's beyond branding. It's these very small pieces of minutia that just like lodge in your brain as when you see Star Wars, you hear this music.
I don't know, man. Mythic. I don't know.
I do think there will be something interesting about. I do think
Subliminal?
that when you lose the sort of main episode element, which I imagine they are going to, I do think there is something interesting about. And no one would have ever realized this when they made the first bloody movie, but you sort of do realize there is actually a stroke of genius in just a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. This is the brand, and then the next thing is this is the story. Like it's not even the episode; it'll just be like this is the, and then it gives you a quick context of like this is what's going on in this one,
Sure,
and then you just watch it. Like that's what it's going to become. I think is that you'll just kind of have
Another side note: you should say bloody a lot more because as soon as you did it, I was like, now there's a flavor. There's beef purists listening like, now I don't know about having bloody when Tim said bloody.
You can tell he's been abroad because and then he said it and then he was like, fuck.
It's not even on
He's
purpose.
gonna say something about it. Fuck.
I like that. The first bloody man.
Welcome back.
Yeah,
Welcome back, man. But
now you need to say fucking and then trail off now if you want to get back to
right, fucking. I was gonna bring up when we were first, so like as far as the factions of this and why it was difficult to talk with people about this because everybody had their own little corner of the sky,
right?
Where and with again the like-minded people who liked it, but felt the need to pull back on like, well, that wasn't so great though, so don't say that part was great. And I don't know if that is that an our generation thing? I don't like to always make these broad strokes, but like, where is that? We've talked about it before, where we have that need. We talked about it with La La Land, where when something is praised, you feel this like inherent want to be like, but surely it's not that good.
Well,
and with
the
this,
question is
even
usually, did you like it? Right? Sorry to interrupt.
Sure. But I mean, even down to though when someone and I made the joke about it that like even when someone agrees with us, but then they say something slightly off,
but also
what you agree with, and you're like no.
What you also get is a lot of hyper sort of people who there's this sort of intellectual, I don't know what you'd call it, posturing that sort of comes with, this is what I know about story structure.
Right.
And as a result, you sort of, and it's nonsense that you even feel this way, but sometimes you go, I liked it. But then the first thing you feel obliged to do is go, I mean, I don't think it's perfect. I actually have opinion. Sure. And it's strange because you're not allowed to just lead with, I liked it, and that's it. You sort of feel the need to go,
absolutely.
but I've thought about it, and it's not perfect. And trust me, I'm really smart. Like, there's this.
Can we talk about how much I want to strangle everybody who talks about like the reason why this is bad is because it doesn't. It's screenwriting 101. You know, screenwriting 101. It's like there is a template for how you're supposed to write movies.
No,
like that's not a constant thing that's changing literally every day.
I agree, and also whenever I've had that. For instance, when there's two things that I tend to reject the most in that is sort of two things. It's people going, as someone who grew up with Star Wars, I go, trust me, if we need to do the competition of who has baby pictures with lightsabers and stuff, I'm gonna match you.
Like that's a qualification.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Were you born like
so I go
this time? Yes,
in America
rose with Star Wars.
Exactly. So it's almost like, shut up, that doesn't make you an authority on anything.
Right.
And then exactly the screenwriting 101 thing is also one of those things where I go, I mean, I've got 2 film degrees and I've read all the books, and I don't think that makes me an expert on story structure and screenwriting. It's one of those things where I go, the very fact that you think screenwriting 101 and you have the authority to like...
It's almost like wrongly thinking about screenwriting. Like I'm not a screenwriter, so I don't want to act here and sit here thinking like, talking from some kind of position of authority.
You've written on a screen before. I've seen you. You were drunk and you got the marker.
And my mom, she was very mad.
I'm a screenwriter.
Just like my friends. No, but it's almost thinking about it like it's math. Like if this, then you do that. And poly and rapporte and poly, whatever.
Poly
words. Like it's some kind of... if this, then that is basically what I'm saying. And, and that's just not the way it works when you're writing something, like when you're trying to conceptualize something and bring it to life. You can have issues with it not aesthetically coinciding with what you feel like Star Wars is, or what they've presented to you as what Star Wars is. And you go, well, okay, well, you gave me this and you said that the branding was this and now you're doing this. So what gives? Well, that's valid, but it's not always correct. It's like, that is your position.
But I think it's allowed to... I don't think there needs to be... That's the other weird zone of right or wrong. Who's right or wrong with the thing that they feel. And I know that I've gotten backed into this. And for what it's worth, though, there's also like... There are tried and true rules of stories and story structure. And when things do weird... When a Suicide Squad or a BVS comes around and you're like... You're just like... kind of not playing by any sort of rule I've ever like seen before, and it like you can say things are structurally wrong.
Because like when they talk about the actual, it's not problems with the actual script. Like I feel like Suicide Squad was, but who are we to say what the problem?
But I guess though what's funny is you could probably break that. That's also why this always gets muddy. Is I always feel like when people say that like the 3-act structure is a crutch and you should you should strive to. But then you could basically, even when you think you're breaking out of those structures, I guarantee you I could tell you the first and second and third act of the thing that you did, because it's how things go. That's how when you tell a story about
it's revolutionary. Is there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end.
Right. When I went to the store, I tell you how I went and bought a certain kind of rice because they didn't have the other one. I could break that shit up into fucking
I want rice.
Save the cat and the heart. It would be easy.
Right. I want rice. I faced a challenge. They didn't have the one I wanted, and then the resolution is I chose the other one.
Sure thing.
Right. But what I was getting at was I don't remember. So
experts on screenwriting.
So rice.
Because of that rice analogy.
I'm very hungry.
The rice really threw me off there. Ready for a bowl of rice.
But yeah.
DBZ style chopsticks, just shove it into my mouth like nom 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 nom.
So the voices around this have been. I mean, I guess it's Star Wars, right? So
I remember what I was going to say about the fabric of when you feel that a texture is off. It's a hard thing to talk about because it's hard to justify, and there's been this weird thing with this movie and with most movies, and we pride ourselves on we want evidence. Explain to me why you feel how you feel and show me where that came from. But something feels wrong gets you dismissed instantly, but I don't think it should. I think you're allowed to say there's something the movie's doing and I couldn't tell you what it is, but when this many people are having a weird disconnect, I think you're allowed, for as much as I can look at it and say I've come around and it's good, it's doing something like there's something so I don't want to say you can blame it, but you can hold it accountable for people.
Also, I think in the way that it must be, it's frustrating. Let's say to be beside someone who, I have some issues with this movie, and the person next to you is going, all the men are stupid and the women, and it's just a feminazi movie now, and you're sort of like, this person is not me.
Right.
And similarly, I actually think there's a funny thing that I will agree with is as someone who's on the who liked it, I also don't like standing next to people who go, you know, everyone is just an entitled fanboy. You can't deal with originality, because that's a condescending way to talk to someone who has maybe genuinely just, oh, that didn't work for me, or has issues with the story, and just to tell them you can't handle original shit is sort of that's a condescending way to tell people.
To say that about a movie. In a series, there's been fucking 7 of them. There's been 7, and then we're on the 8th one. Yeah. And in this one, is it the longest one? Mm-hmm. It's 2.5 hours, right?
It's quite long. Yep.
It's a long movie, and there's not a whole lot of like the big action sequences in it. So it's like even just from there already, like. Yeah, that's different. Maybe it's like different than the other ones that we've watched before. Maybe the action things don't happen. And maybe I'm wrong too. That's what's weird too, is I wouldn't be surprised to hear that this does have as many action beats intermittently as all the other ones do, but something about it feels slower and long.
It still does feel very long and
meditative.
I really tried to break it down so I've only seen it twice. I'm not up to number 5. Yeah. But this one was a very analytical watch for me. Yeah. We spend a lot of time with the rebels in tension. Like just like kind of meandering tension that doesn't seem to super go a lot of places.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I just still have my issues with like the whole Rose storyline and Holdo, and while they were mildly interesting, I will give Holdo mildly interesting. I do have issues with like we introduce this character, we spend a lot of time with her, and we kill her off, and we'll never talk about her again in the rest of the series. Yeah. Like in this series of 3 movies that we get, even though we've already been introduced to these many new interesting characters that we'd like to get to know better, we're spending time with these new guys that we don't quite care about, and then will ultimately not have consequence. Which I feel like is not a fault of the movie, but if you're looking at it from the 3 movie project, I could see how that could be a little frustrating for a lot of people.
I think I realized that a lot of my likes still have, speaking of, and not even just to do what we've just been saying, but I've realized that a lot of things I actually really like do have qualifications of, but sometimes it's a messy way we get there.
Right.
Or, you know, so for instance, again, like I did feel, especially with some of the casino stuff, there is suddenly a bit of a lack of urgency to why they're there.
Yeah.
And I think it's exemplified by a scene that a lot of people talk to, but when they ride the rabbits.
Yeah, sure. The fathers. What are those called? My dad. What?
But when they're riding that, and it was worth it to tear up that town, and there is a moment where you go, wait, but this is actually all serving tension of, oh, they haven't been able to find the code breaker yet.
Right.
But the tone of it doesn't match that. So having said that, for instance, a criticism I do disagree with of that plot line is I do like how it eventually all winds up with the plan doesn't work and it becomes part of Poe's arc of not like.
Yeah.
So again, it's one of those interesting things where I would say, you know, I have a criticism, but I like what it's getting at, and that's how I feel with a lot of beats. Is that so? For instance, I keep going back to Phasma isn't. It feels the most to me like, oh, a lot of people wanted more from her in The Force Awakens, so we'll give her an action scene in this.
Absolutely.
And it, having said that, as far as if you're told as a screenwriter you have to kind of work her back in, you know, it's done at a pretty organic place and it's done quite well.
I think
so. Again, it's one of those things where I'd say, you know, I have a sort of larger criticism of it, but I understand how they did it. And
the reality of the movie getting made, you really do have to take into account. Like, I'm one of those people who I did want more from Phasma from the first one, just because I think that she would have fit better there instead of that faceless stormtrooper in the fight where there's
traitor.
Yeah, I did kind of think that they were building up some kind of relationship between Finn and her, and I think that might have been more interesting, like an almost like pseudo motherly relationship, or at least like a commander relationship.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think it was not very satisfying the way that they concluded the storyline, but it's exactly that. They concluded the storyline. They just like kind of brought her in to close that book for everybody who wanted that book closed. Which is a very mechanical way of making the movie, I think.
Yeah, but I don't think that's entirely right, just because from the everybody listening, if after you're done listening to this, go listen to it's a half hour, it's the DGA podcast, and I forget who is it, Spike Jones talking to Ryan Johnson. And one of the things that really surprised me to hear about this So this is surprising all on its own, but he was writing this before The Force Awakens came out. He was writing it based on his read of The Force Awakens.
Interesting.
So he was just going from like what he saw in his head, and yes, he was seeing dailies. He was seeing what these people look like and everything, and hearing their voices and blah blah blah. But he was just going on his experience, his one singular experience. He didn't have any of the how people reacted to it. So I find that very cool. That's like, oh, so there was a lot of this that was organic, for better or worse.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I don't think someone told him, because he said explicitly, no one said, here's the checklist of things that you need to happen.
Yeah.
And now something that also kind of weirds me out is that he said there was not an outline of this trilogy. There was not here's what this first movie does, here's where the second movie ends, and here's where we ultimately end. Maybe they know where we're ending.
Sure. Right.
What's the final? Here's where we go.
Probably grab coffee with JJ at some point and go, so what do you think?
Right.
What do you think happens?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But there wasn't there's not like an at Disney, here's what these movies are going to be.
Sure.
So even right now, as JJ's handing in his first draft of 9, there wasn't like a mandate of.
I wonder, almost, can you kind of feel it a little bit?
Yeah, and I think that's a weird, honestly, with something like this, where we should have learned from the disjointedness of these 2 other trilogies we've done, where it's like, I don't know, that's like I know that's a weird thing to say about even the original trilogy, but like,
What, maybe we
that
should've
was
done this
was
tighter?
laying the tracks in front of it as it was going. He didn't know everything.
Absolutely,
that was
there were
happen.
ideas, but
Yeah, I mean, you look at even with
Well, that's what I was
Vader
gonna
and
say.
with Leia, like those were
He makes out with her in the first movie.
He
So,
didn't
like,
know
I mean,
he was doing that.
yes.
Yeah.
And to your point, we'll hop back in this in a second. But when you're talking about when they're on Canto Bight and they're kind of taking their time, that is a very Star Warsy-esque thing. Luke kind of just goes away for a
Yeah, totally.
question mark, shoulder shrug period of time.
My third watch on this
fine.
took the pressure off. The first one was obviously you're newborn, you're learning the world. Second one, I looked at it very analytically as you did, which kind of it also didn't let me have like a super what's the word, like natural viewing experience, because I was trying to see the pieces. And then this one, I didn't give a shit anymore. I like took all the pressure off. I'm just gonna watch it, and I know where we end. I know where this is going. So then watching it in that, you would almost think that would make it a more boring watch or whatever. But it kind of just let me. Then I was like, oh, I like that we just kind of go to this weird place where you see all the people who profit off of the Star War.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
That's
absolutely.
neat to me, because in this movie, it also fits thematically in this being the movie where we're gonna look at all those little things that we're
Just to
taking.
lose track that the Star Wars is the focus of the series.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, Star
There's a war,
Wars.
and then these are the people
fuck.
profiting off of the wars.
It is a remarkable thing, though. I agree, because when you think back to just, for instance, I remind myself of the first time I watched it, and I go, it is impossible not to just experience it in a weird way, because, for instance, because of external factors as well. But for instance, you know that there's a mystery about Rey's parents, so as a result you're watching those scenes completely differently. Or an obvious one, but when Kylo doesn't shoot, and then the entire resistance leadership gets shot into space, and it's strange because you're watching it going, holy shit, is this how they do it? They probably won't do it like that. They'll probably be something else. But that's how you're experiencing that beat instead of like, instead
of just in the story, Kylo and Leia, you're like,
is that how they do it? Is that how they? There's no way they would have dealt with her death like that, right?
Absolutely.
For instance, and
that's kind of beautiful, because you're not, you should be expecting them to not do it. Like you are exactly. You're waiting with bated breath for, okay, they're just gonna say their parents' names. They're just gonna say it. It's just gonna happen. Like, there's a part of you that's expecting that to happen. It's like, of course, that's not the way it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know that. But there's something beautiful that they trick you in that way. You trick yourself.
I'm just imagining a completely different draft of the script where Luke hands the lightsaber. He looks at it. Your parents are.
Your parents are Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're a clone of Obi-Wan.
Yeah, you're Obi-Wan. You love the clone of Obi-Wan.
She's a clone of Obi-Wan. It's the truth.
She's not, man.
It's true. How do you explain the blue lightsaber?
What do you mean?
I don't know. I just think
Because she's strong with the damn Force, and it's her destiny to. That's what. So these were the things. My resistance.
My first order with the film was
boop a doop a doop boop boop. were the cake and eat it too things, and I saw those as negatives.
That's my favorite planet in Star Wars. Cake and eat it too.
I love cake and eat it.
It's a great place. Weird how all the I don't know.
Just a bunch of Marie Antoinettes like bumping into each other on the surface of the planet. Universe is vast.
So I responded poorly to that the first time. It felt hypocritical and contradictory, and that's what I was saying in our last beef. I came to realize at the end of that episode, and then again in my last watch, that should, and I would still maybe say I could hold the movie accountable for this, but that was supposed to be the warm conclusion of the movie. I was supposed to at the end of this be like, because I do this all the time. I believe in this when you're writing, that you're supposed to take extremes and then you kind of meet in the middle of like, what's the actual resolution here? Because it's not kill the past, and it's also not rely on legends.
Right.
So we're gonna get in the center a little bit, right? And I didn't quite understand that that's what the movie was doing, because to me it just felt like they at the end were like, but also Luke is awesome, and also Rey is destined to be the best guy, and also they're gonna fight, and in the ships that's how you win, is you shoot the thing, and you win because you're a good shooter. But like, and I just was missing the I don't know. I was missing the subtlety of meeting in the middle.
I would agree that it's interesting, because I think for myself as well, I actually do think, and maybe it's something you brought up before. It's the fact that it isn't immediately clear can both be seen as a pro, but also potentially as a communication problem in the movie. Because I do agree. I actually think, especially the perspectives on the past versus legends versus moving forward, are actually it's a really thoughtful conclusion.
Yes,
the movie
I
gives
agree.
You. Like, I agree, because it's really interesting to have Luke and Kylo have the exact same opinion in a strange way. Luke says, I'm going to die. The Jedi Order needs to die. We just need to let the past die. Kylo Ren says, actively kill the past and build from there. And Rey naively believes, if I bring back this old guy, we're going to fix everything, and because he's a legend.
I'm going to win the Star Wars.
Right. Yeah. And then for the movie to eventually say, it's kind of nicely summed up in Yoda's moment of wisdom, but it's you learn from the past, and you learn from your failures, and you build from there. Yeah. And so again, I think that's actually a really meaningful, and well thought out thesis, and it is in the story. It's not even not even like, oh, I'm reading into it the way
that's all there.
Having said that, I do agree, it's not like you immediately leave the movie going, you don't, that's what it was, which is so it's interesting. I do agree. I think it's because when I bring that up, I go, it's not like I'm sort of intellectualizing a movie that in no way deserves it. It's in the movie, but somehow it's not,
There's even that line where Snoke says like, I did not expect Master Skywalker to be so wise. Like, as far as like, we wanting the Jedi to die.
We will give him what he wishes.
And honestly, those are still my two biggest issues with the movie towards the end. One, I still don't know why the Jedi need to die necessarily.
Because of the arrogance.
Beyond the fact that so anyone can use the light side of the Force. You don't have to be a Jedi to do that. That's not why they have to die. Though I thought the Jedi was just taking people that already do that and like learning how to focus. I guess the elitism. But like his issue isn't. He never like talks about the elitism. Other than like to say the Jedi die, the light side dies is arrogance. Other than that, like that's not why the Jedi have to die necessarily.
No,
I wish they would have gone more into like of the by thinking of themselves the arbiters of the light side, or of being like beings of the absolute light. And that's the arrogance, but he doesn't ever quite touch that. He never quite goes there.
I think the fact that he says to say that if the Jedi die, the light side dies, or whatever, or there's no hope, is nothing short of arrogance.
I guess maybe I'm just a dumb guy, and I need that said to me. I can't quite extrapolate it from that series of words.
But he's coming at it too from he believed his own swindle. Like, he believed his legend. He thought he was the best guy, and because he's the best Jedi now, and so he failed miserably because of that. So, like, I completely get him having that opinion of,
but did he really fail that miserably? Like, what did he really do other than... I don't know, man. I I think that the whole Kylo Luke stuff could have been a little bit more.
You also though don't know, like maybe they could have touched on how it went at the temple. Like maybe he was continuing these inherently like wrong ways to train people and blah blah blah. Right. I read a really interesting thing that kind of was in favor of, and I don't think that it's that George Lucas is. I don't like shitting on this man because I do think he is. Inarguably,
he seems very sad when I do it.
He's a creative genius. Yeah, he doesn't like when I show up.
Oh, come on, dog. He's like, not again.
I'm trying to have coffee.
Close the gate.
Stood up.
Oh, he's climbing over the gate.
Oh, he's coming. Here we go again.
I have problems, George.
But the midichlorians thing works fascinatingly well. Someone made that. I saw it was either a Twitter thread. I don't remember, and I wish I could credit the person, but it was basically making the case that Anakin. He is discovered by these mystical wizards who tell him, you're just as much of a wizard. You're a great wizard. And you're going to come over here. We have this school.
One of them has a very large beard.
Yeah, hold on, wait. But and then they're in this the height of the Jedi. They're the most powerful before the Jedi fall. They are at their most like conceited and old-fashioned and elite. We take your blood and we get this reading of that there's this fucking thing in you that means you're probably more force sensitive, right?
Right.
And that makes you qualified to come to our secret school. Come on, boy. And it's very like it's clinical and it's weird, and the technology. Look at where the Jedi hang out. It's like a fucking.
And these are the nice guys.
Ballroom.
Like these are the
in the middle of this insane city in lavish wealth castles, and then he's this. Come on, castles. And so he's growing up, and it's you can't marry. You should never be too upset about anything. Everything's very strict. And then the first guy who tells him who is trying to like bring him over to the dark side, it's the thing. He tells him a story. He goes, the tale of, was it Darth Plagueis the Wise? The failure. And he tells him this tale of like someone who just wanted to bring someone he loves back from the dead. And then so it's like, well, of course, after faced with this clinical certainty of the Jedi, and then someone shows up and is like, nah, dude, be mad. We should want to bring people back from the dead. And I can show you how. Come here. Like, of course he fell for that. Of course he went with that guy.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the movie
keeping them from stuff, right?
Those movies, this is a case where you're maybe reading a little into like, but it does make it actually for me supports what Last Jedi's doing in the sense of like Luke realizing the negative, what's the word, like harmful way to think about the force.
You don't keep yourself away from these things. You like keep them at arm's length. And I think it's really interesting when people use that kind of stuff, like canon background stuff, to support the basis of the newer stuff.
It's a little bullshit.
It's usually always bullshit, just because like it's always a new writer trying to make his mark on the franchise. He's not like, typically they're not going back and pulling from like weird things that people revere from like the prequels to like, there's even the line in this one where she says like, okay, what is the Force? He's like, it's the thing that binds us. She goes, okay, but what is it? And then he kind of goes, and then he keeps talking. Right. It's like, well, you could have said midichlorians there, but I don't think that he wanted to. I don't think anybody writing this or involved in this wanted to.
Imagine we're all in a big soup. And, the Force is the broth, and we're just a bunch of little tasty carrots and onions and little pieces of cut up chicken. And I'm so fucking hungry. I only eat fish.
What am I, Master Luke? Am I the egg noodles?
You can be. You can be.
They bring back that line, and they think it's like the best thing.
What do you see? All right, so what do you see?
You
carrots, onions,
and little piece of cut up chicken.
Peace.
Yeah, peace? No,
Islands.
No peas.
Islands.
So a thing I want to address before I forget, because I keep wanting to bring it back up, is the Haldo, the chase of the Resistance. Wasn't clear, and I might have said it in the last one. I don't remember at this point. But I see it now in the movie, and I embraced it on my last watch, that they are there is an inherent panic in that this is the end of the resistance. It's only these people, and they're gonna run out of fuel. And when they do, that's it. There is no more. There's nobody else is gonna stand up and fight the First Order. Now, and again, I still stand by that. I kind of needed that to be more explicitly said, but I think I could boil down the lack of urgency that we're talking about in the casino and in the chase. I call it a chase in quotes, but like in the waiting for the gas to run out.
Sure, the pursuit.
I think that has to do with, as fun as it was, for taking authority from Hux. And it's funny, but when in the beginning of this movie, he's a cartoon, very much so. And he falls on his face, and that should have been this weird, like, oh, we're watching something bubble up in this guy. Like, he doesn't like being treated this way. But it kind of just plays as like,
no, he's just a cartoon the whole way.
A funny guy to beat up on, right? And if I said it, I might have said it in the last one, but I could literally boil it down to the line where he says we're going to follow them, because he's so calm, and he goes, eventually they will run out of gas, and we just need to keep going. If we keep going, we'll eventually win. Carry on. And like, that's the urgency of it. But if he screamed follow them, if they were like, sir, they're faster than us, and he was like, the whole resistance is on those ships, if we've
Sure. I mean, you could even wonder, and again, it is loosely explained, but again, I think in these films it is interesting how it doesn't ever tend to affect me in the viewing, but I'll always, in hindsight, realize, like, for instance, didn't Rogue One have a cool little moment where some ships went into hyperspace, and then they crashed into one of the big ones?
Sure.
Like I don't think they push it. They don't use hyperspace, but they push a ship into, they push a destroyer into another one.
But I think there were a few who were about to leave, and then a big one shows up. And now, in fairness, they're not as big as the Resistance cruiser. Oh, okay. But I think there's a little moment in that movie where that happens.
Interesting.
And here's the thing. I for instance, for all intents and purposes, completely buy they do explain it in dialogue, the sort of, their ships are smaller and faster. If they stay out of range, we can't hit them, all those things. Having said that, there is that part of you that goes, I mean, you guys have plenty of fuel. Can you like hyperspace for like 2 seconds, like, and get it close? Like, I don't know.
Like, they say we'll overshoot it. We'll end up in front of them, but then it's like, but what if
we turn it around? Or
turn right around?
But I think that's sort of it's always interesting. I agree. Like, what you need for the purposes of to be able to understand the,
because I know that's nitpicky, but I think it's nitpicky in service of a larger pacing thing. I mean, for instance, I missed.
I quite like Hux, but I would agree. I agree. I think this is something my younger brother pointed out as well, actually, which is that there is in this franchise, because I'm all about Kylo. Yeah. Really like Kylo.
We all
having said that,
big strong man.
Hey. I do think
no, we're about Kylo. We're more about Kylo.
But I do think there is this interesting thing of there isn't really in this one a particularly scary villain.
Right.
For instance, Kylo is interesting to watch, but he's not particularly, like, he's scary in that he's ruthless. Sure. and so it is interesting because I think the only reason I'm okay with Hux, I think, has a lot to do with Domhnall Gleeson as an actor, because I do think he, to me, for instance, little moments like when he's about to shoot Kylo and then he stands up and he like puts his jacket back, or even just his performance when it's like Supreme Leader Snoke is making contact from his ship and he sort of just goes, excellent, I'll take it in my chambers,
and I laughed at that.
And it's interesting because but I think there's a part of me that goes, that's him. Like, it's because he is a cartoony,
of course he
but
is.
as an actor, it's literally one of those things where he's selling me on not particularly great.
But I think what he's saying is that it ultimately doesn't go anywhere for him. Like, all these humiliations never end. Like, every other character in the movie, I mean, one would hope so. Yeah. But like, every other character in the movie has an arc except for him, which is just be a big stupid idiot punching bag with stupid dumb red hair.
Sammy pointed out if it was more, in a certain kind of, if you imagine it a little bit like television, you'd have a moment in the next one where, Hux would be, oh, what's this security recording? And it would be Kylo killing Snoke, and it would be, and he'd turn around and Kylo would be there. It would be that level of like, we're going to explain our way out of this.
Yeah.
But
and I do have people talk about the humor in the movie as kind of being offbeat. I don't think that's necessarily true.
Definitely not all of it.
I think especially if you watch The Force Awakens before watching this, there's plenty of the stormtroopers like stopping each other as Kylo is destroying and then backing up is easily one of the most is more cartoonish than anything in this one. I think it's very funny and it's congruent. I'm using that word a lot today, but consistent with the humor from The Force Awakens. I liked it a lot. I think it added a lot.
I think there's lots of little moments where, again, it's interesting because the movie, and these are the things that they didn't particularly bug me, but I do understand how if someone argued on tonal inconsistency, how they could really take them out of it.
Right.
For instance, I do think the movie does an interesting thing at, okay, Rey's in actual peril right now, and they're gonna have to. This is serious. This is completely legit. And then other action scenes, it's a little bit more like, and BB-8 helps them with the by controlling the thing, and we don't even see them get on the ship. It just cuts to them flying out of the ship because you don't really care, how whether Finn, Rose, and BB-8 made it onto the ship, and you don't need to see the fireball about to engulf them. It just literally just cuts. They're running to the ship.
Oh, this isn't their bottleneck yet. Like we'll get there soon.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the movie is full of a lot of little things like that where it sort of goes, this is serious, here the tension matters, and then in other areas it's sort of not really.
You know something, and I think I do think I'm probably stupid. I didn't quite realize it this way, but something in that podcast that was cleared up for me that then it's weird that these little things are what ultimately, like when I can get on board with stuff like the wet hole, when I can like understand its function, it changes more of the movie for me than
This is exactly what I said about health class. If I can just understand the function.
Hole. Ugh, God. Anyway.
See, I didn't repeat that word again.
That sloppy dark hole that Rey falls into. I didn't realize.
It's lies. There's no answers down there. It's just tempting.
Yes.
It's the dark side.
Great. It's the dark side. Now, see, Rian Johnson, the way that he explained it, though, and because it's like, kind of like, oh, that's just there? Why is that just there?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, but it's because on the top of the mountain is like the first Jedi temple. It's this this physical place of light, this intense, like, here's a place of all the Jedi knowledge, and then light is always met with dark. And so at the bottom of this mountain, there's, of course, a place would fester from the dark side right underneath that. You know what I mean? Just to rise up and meet it.
I like the idea of it just being a natural formation of her seeing, like, I see the light side. There's also a wet, dark hole. Like, Rey, focus. What do you? There's like a hole. No, look at it. It's wet. It's got like seaweed around it.
I want to go look at it.
Look at everything, anything in the universe, Rey. All things, and you're looking at this dark, weird hole. I'm going in it.
I'm gonna go for a swim.
You went right for the dark hole, but I can't train you.
That, like, for some reason, it, number one, makes things less weird. And that was the thing I still take issue with. Everybody who thinks that this movie is, and because it is weird in a lot of ways, and it does weird little things, but I also don't think it's as bonkers as the people who don't like it for this reason think it is, and also the people who do like it for this reason think it is. Well, like, that makes sense when you hear it.
I think the way I look at it, though, is it's interesting because, again, I actually think it is, in certain senses, quite a brave movie. Especially from Rian Johnson as an artist, sort of making certain decisions and certain statements. At the same time, sort of, I agree. It doesn't, it's always that thing where I feel like I need to remind people, but it's still a multi-million-dollar Star Wars Disney movie.
Come on.
They're not gonna. What are you expecting? Like, because I remember seeing people genuinely being so pedantic as to be. I wish, like, Rey should have just joined him, and then we should have just gotten a movie about them building a society together. And I'm sort of. No, you wouldn't like that. You wouldn't like that if you saw that. I guarantee.
I mean, that's very fascinating. I would love to read that novel. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's interesting because
that's just someone who needs to just spray a little more Axe body spray.
I think it's the Red Letter Media play or whatever. I don't know. Somebody. I've heard that as well. Something I do want to say. Oh, I'm sorry. Please.
No. I guess I just mean. But I agree. It's not so insanely different that, Having said that, I do think there are little things like they are understated choices. But for instance, you don't have to like it. But Snoke's going to be a big thing. No, he isn't. Is in some senses, an audacious choice.
Yeah, I agree.
And because you're not saying we're going to keep him around for the next one. I'm going to keep fueling these theories and keep people. It's literally just like, nope.
He's dead, yeah.
And so there are choices that, for instance, I still think there is something, I was okay with it. I understand that some people aren't, but I do think there's something quite brave about going, hey, the legend of Luke Skywalker, he's depressed and sad and he wants to die. Again, I think it would be infinitely safer, which it kind of makes it impressive to me that in the Disney empire that they were able to sort of get it through, is that, let's face it, people would be happier. Sort of the large audience at large would be happier with, he shows up at the end and we get him with the green lightsaber and we see him kill some people. And,
exactly.
And it is brave to then go, nope, he doesn't actually really do anything. He stays on the island the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, again,
you're right.
doesn't mean you're not allowed to take issue with it. It's that whole thing about just because it's subversive and original doesn't mean you have to be okay with it. I sort of always
and it would be a very lazy choice. I mean, they address that at the very beginning. Where do you think I'm just gonna show up with a laser sword and fight off an army or whatever? I still don't understand why he died from the force projection. I still don't understand why that needed to happen.
It is subtly planted in dialogue. Yeah, but I do agree. Like Kylo's first thing is he says, "You're not doing this. The effort would kill you."
He says that to Rey.
So the implication being, if to do this would be insane.
Oh, okay. So he dies as a consequence of just doing the thing.
The most insane thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I guess that's another one when people said Luke isn't even powerful. He's just weak and flawed. He transported his body across planets. Yeah. So which I go, again, not saying that has to be great.
Just to act as a diversion. I guess it does fit the whole thing of you don't need to kill the past, but the past does need to break down to build
and also
new.
That winning isn't necessarily blowing them up and blah, 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 that it can be this. It can be this that then inspires the next generation of kids to...
They don't know he's dead. Nobody else knows that then afterwards he died. Rey feels it, Leia feels it, but as far as everyone else was concerned, he showed up, kicked ass, and disappeared.
Yeah, and then he showed his kids telling the story.
I will always remember watching the scene and enjoying the progression, but for instance, when he walked out, and I was like, this is cool, I'm excited seeing Luke. And then part of my brain went, I really hope he doesn't just force push all of them over or something, because I was like, don't make him God, please. And then they did all the shooting, and he shows and he does the little shoulder wipe, and I sort of was, and again I was, this is funny, but I really hope he's not God. And then at the end I went, oh, thank God. Which again, I was able to appreciate how kind of cool that beat is on multiple viewings, because the first time I literally just went, oh, thank God they didn't make him Jesus.
I can't believe I didn't know it. He literally looks totally different. I mean, I talked about this last episode,
but I didn't feel any of the impact of that reveal. I was like, he's not there.
Here's a small thing I noticed on rewatch. There's a line that Yoda has where after he brings the lightning down and sets fire to the tree, his exact line is, there is nothing in that library that Rey does not already possess.
She has the books.
She has the books.
Yeah.
She literally has the books. And I'm like, oh, okay. So they're kind of talking about it. And I almost wish they wouldn't have shown it in the drawers at the end.
Yeah, the close-up.
Yeah. Sure.
I can't believe I missed that the first time, because I sort of, when people...
It happens really quickly.
But I agree. But at the same time, when people were talking about it, you see them in the Millennium Falcon again, and I thought, oh, is that like a background detail? And then, no, it's an insert. It's a close-up.
She pulls the drawer open.
It was embarrassing to me that I hadn't noticed. It's really interesting. I keep coming back to I cannot predict who's gonna dig it and who's not. I've been so wrong so many times. I've thought it's gonna be all this person, they're gonna be all about it, and then they come out and they go, it didn't work for me. And then I've thought that person's gonna hate it because they've hated this and this and this, and then they come out and they go, dude, it's like I didn't care about Star Wars, and it's my favorite thing. This one worked.
It's
for me.
fascinating in that sense. And I wanted to tweet at Rian Johnson and be like, thank you. And this is when I was still feeling lukewarm on it. Haha, lukewarm. Haha, Ray warm. Haha.
When I was still feeling Luke big on it.
Yeah. But I wanted to be like, dude, you know what? It has been. I truly don't remember, if ever in my life have I ever talked this much about a movie with people.
Yeah.
Or has something inspired, and for better or worse, because it's also people being annoyed.
I agree.
It's also coming from a place of people feeling rage, but what a beautiful thing.
Well, it's
that we
interesting
care this much.
Again, bringing it back to the incredible divide in like how extreme you are one way or the other. The argument that people bring up when you say you love it is they tell you, well, there were people who loved The Phantom Menace when it first came out, and they show you clips of, and they go, you're just an idiot who can't yet realize that it sucks, and I'm going to be proven a genius 20 years from now.
Which that's frustrating.
And then here's the thing. The other way, there were people who hated The Empire Strikes Back when it came out, and now it's considered a masterpiece. And so, again, it's that thing where people just go, I'll be proven right. Which is a nonsense. Just discuss how you feel. Like, that's how you should debate a movie.
This is going to happen with every single one of these, because there's too many of them now. That's what I mean by, like, where this is, we're 8 deep, man. There's a lot to look back on and compare to.
But what was interesting, though, is, so separate from that point, regardless of, how things age, because I always find that to be a bit of a pointless conversation anyway, because pointless conversation anyway. It's like one of those things where when you think about it, if you loved back then, if you loved the original Star Wars, like if you loved Star Wars and you went to go see the sequel, I sort of realized, you might hate The Empire Strikes Back if you felt if you like adored the original Star Wars, and then the second one comes out and the cast are kind of split up for most of the movie. You don't really get to see Luke and Han interact much. They do all this. It is just he's hanging out with a sort of puppet-looking guy. Oh, and wait, Vader, who I had all these feelings about and opinions about. Oh, he's the guy's dad. Sure. Or for instance, I liked. You'd have people who felt like I liked Leia and Luke, and now they're doing a Han and Leia thing. I don't know, man. So the point being, I look at that and I go, sure. When you first watched it,
of course.
Whereas for us, in hindsight, we go, best movie twist of all time. But it's strange because
it is very funny to imagine him going, Luke, I'm your father, and someone else going, what?
Yeah.
It's his dad? You're supposed to like your dad, though. Oh, gosh.
So I guess just the point being, I think I do agree, though, what this franchise has for some reason more interestingly than others is exactly there's like feelings and investment and
the four
tits.
movies.
No one else could see that. That's visual. He just kind of pushes his hand forward.
But it's even with things I've realized, for instance, that I appreciate stuff like what it's getting at with the war profiteering and even the sort of the DJ character. Right. I like what it's getting at. I do think there is a meaningful conversation though to be had about, is Star Wars the best vehicle to truly explore this? At the same time, do I like that it's texture in an otherwise big movie, and that mainly for all ages and younger kids? Is it good that it sort of brings up a little think about this for a second? Maybe good. Like, but I always find myself a little conflicted on it in that, for instance, they tried to do a similar thing in Rogue One, right? An equivalent to the, oh, look, this guy sold weapons to the bad guys.
Right.
And the good guys, how does that make you feel?
Right.
And it was the same thing in Rogue One when Diego Luna's character, is informed by someone and then shoots them, and we're meant to go, ooh, people who are part of the rebellion do shitty things too. And I always think this is really nice, and I like that you're doing this. It's a very mature thing. At the same time, you're muddying the waters, man. I like who I can root for in these movies.
That does bring up an interesting conversation about the fundamentals of Star Wars, where yes, it is interesting to add these layers of depth and complexity to the Star Wars universe, but is it necessary? And do we actually really want it? Like, we may just want a silly star adventure, but I guess we'll see. I'm sure we're going to get a little bit more complex in the next couple of years.
Maybe.
I will say I've come to the conclusion with some certainty that I don't like how this one looks as much as I like how The Force Awakens looks, and I don't think that's just the throwback thing. I think that's like, I don't know. There was something more. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. But
honestly,
when you look at like the snow fight at the end of Force Awakens, like what's comparable in Jedi? Am I stupid? Am I forgetting like some amazingly visual?
Well, I think the salt fight is supposed to be visually impressive with the red and the white.
Yes, but it was sort of, that was one of those things where I was like, I know I'm looking at them on real ground maybe, but they're in the middle of a big
you're
green
right.
screen dome.
You're right.
I could just, I don't know. And I know that's like not the movie's fault really, because it's a cool idea.
Because I thought
the throne room looked cool.
The throne room was cool, but then there was also moments in that where I was like...
And ultimately, the fight in that was inconsequential. It's just a defensive fight, which, I mean, it's a cool fight. Probably the coolest Star Wars fight. Like
it's pretty cool.
Where he does just tap the lightsaber and stabs him in the face. Incredibly. The cool one. Of the
also, Rey's kind of cool.
Yes.
Because I remember...
She's a hard ass.
Yeah, because as cool as it was that we had a female lead and a female Jedi, I do remember in The Force Awakens, and here's the thing, from a plot perspective, it makes sense. She hasn't held a lightsaber before, so she's just swinging that thing.
Right.
But I do remember thinking, oh man, I want to see a, really fucking use that thing.
Right.
Because it is just a bit of like swinging around,
which was cool though, because it felt dangerous and like you were kind of scared.
And then in this one though, there are moments when I remember just thinking like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like that bit when the guy when he's swinging around his like two
balls.
Like, balls.
Swinging around his balls.
And then she starts swinging around a lightsaber and freaking screams before she goes at it. Yeah, this is bad.
Well, it's that's what I was talking about, how the character differentiation between the book and the movies is bothering me, because like when they do stuff like that, Rey is a badass who grew up on this hard, dark planet, but she just seems so prim and proper a lot of the time. It drives me crazy.
I don't know if she seems prim and proper.
But when she fights, it is that like brutality from the first one, just a little bit more refined, which I think is interesting. Like, and she switches up her grip with a lightsaber, which I've never seen anybody else do.
Yeah, that was cool.
Like,
where she drops it.
Yeah, and she drops it and does that, but she also just does that when she's regularly swinging, like when she's doing the thing where she's practicing next to the rock. I'm like, this is cool.
She's used to having the staff.
This is fucking sick. I like it.
Yeah.
I watched the Darth Maul fight the other day with Obi-Wan, the one from Rebels, where they finish things.
Oh.
It was good. It was really good.
Man.
They should bring all those. I want a gray Jedi. I want a Jedi. His name is Kim Tishavis, and he's a gray Jedi. He's got it's the strongest lightsaber. He's got all the Jedi powers.
Okay, cool.
He was born on Naboo.
You know what I'm excited for? I'm excited.
He's Sebulba's son.
Oh, good. There's more. No, good, because I was worried there wasn't more. I was getting...
He's the best pod racer in the galaxy, and also the best father racer. What do they call it? Fathers, yes. Dad racing shit.
Then I rode the dads.
Release the dad.
I'm the 2014 pop racing champion. You can't talk to me like that.
I'm excited to see Kylo use Force Lightning. We're going to get there. I know we better.
Force Lightning. Hey, everyone.
I'm cool.
Me too.
I'm very cool.
I'm cool.
I'm just a cool guy. No, I am excited to see. It is interesting as well because it does make it all the more sad with Carrie Fisher, because you can absolutely tell that they had plans,
right?
Which is sort of upsetting in context. At the same time, I think they made the right call with what they did in this film of just leaving it clearly intact as was,
letting JJ figure it out.
Sure, and also it does give interesting poignance. I mean, rewatching it this time, the Carrie Fisher coming back to life.
Yes,
and I was just like, oh
no, I was so aware the first time. I was like, well, I don't
know, because
like,
maybe just because the first time I was watching them 100% as Star Wars characters, like I wasn't like, oh, this is old ass Mark Hamill. Sure. I was like, oh, this is Luke Skywalker.
I couldn't look past the old ass Mark Hamill stuff. I mean, like I was so aware.
I did find it interesting because I thought of similar stuff a little bit when. And again, I always feel like I need to point out I do go into these movies differently now, in that I feel like someone who at one point was obsessed with it and goes into it now. I enjoy that this is a thing I get to do once a year.
Yeah.
I get to sort of check in and see all these characters. And I remind myself that it is a, sci fantasy franchise for all ages.
Sure.
Like, families go to.
Sci fantasy?
As in, because science fiction implying, like, it's not necessarily accurate, but
no, this is great. I like this word. I'm going to use it.
But science fiction being, it tries to convince you that this could actually happen. Science fantasy meaning it's not.
Sure.
Like, yeah, exactly.
We used to call that speculative fiction.
Yeah.
We got
but I think
crystals make the laser.
Build it.
You gotta
crystals make a really powerful. Yeah,
you gotta crunch up the crystal.
Our spaceship is a car in function. It does the exact same thing.
Like Ryan Gosling being the next, being the Jedi building master.
Oh,
you gotta get the crystals. You gotta put them in the bag.
He keep one lightsaber.
But I had a very specific moment like that, actually, when at one point And again, I like what that scene's getting at, and I enjoy all of it. But there was a moment in a wide shot with Luke standing there with the blue lightsaber saying, "I failed you, Ben." That I had a moment when I took a step out and went, this is all a bit silly. I'm enjoying it.
I know what you mean.
I'm enjoying it, but sort of, I was reminded that it's a franchise that I loved as a 10-year-old.
You know
because I was sort of, it's just a guy standing with not even that long cloak in a wide shot. Saying,
the line that gets
I failed you, Ben. And I sort of realized, yeah, we are very invested in this science.
We're
in these wizards with laser swords standing on fields
when he's
trying to turn each other back from good to bad.
You think you could turn him? It's like, hello, I'm here. Person. Hello.
It's sort of,
You think you can turn him?
Rap battle.
No.
Yeah, no. Oh, dude, what if Jedi's had a rap battle? That's some online content. No, but to your point, like the line for me is when he's on the Falcon and he sees R2 and he goes, R2. Like the way he delivers it, I'm like, oh man, this is 100%. He hasn't said this character's name in 22 years.
Yeah. Watch your language, Sacred Island.
Yeah.
Bitch. She's elsewhere, you fucking asshole. Talking to him.
R2's cursing a lot. Yeah.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
All right.
We're gonna get into these. I'm gonna start from.
You're gonna
top.
have to edit that freaking.
Oh, it's gonna get
Freudian
edited.
slip.
Oh yeah. That's okay.
Oh come on, that'd be hilarious.
Like I was like, I knew exactly what I was trying to say, and that's not how I said.
I know. We all knew.
Yeah. It's just the funniest of
No, it was funny. Like I laughed. Like I've been laughing about it ever since. Like I've just been in my head.
Oh no, it's hilarious. Please don't put it in.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Please
It's
cut it
funny
out.
for us for this room.
We can go.
Oh
The amount of times I've given you the option to kill my career if you wanted to.
That's true.
I just like to leave in the parts of us talking about the bit that might kill your career. Yeah. That's the fun part to have in the episode. You're like, what is that in the premium? Give me $1.
But I think we're all positive on it, right? Like we've all gotten
it's funny
this.
how I have come around back to positive. And I almost feel like that's just maybe my default for movies. Is that the more I watch them, the more familiar I get with them. I don't think there's anything that I've ever watched that has festered. Like the more I see it, the more I hate it.
Well, I've had that.
Well, I don't know.
Tim, what was your last movie again? I forgot. I'm just kidding.
No, it's. Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
Let me tell you.
Or maybe it's just by virtue of what we said earlier of it being like the big studio. There is always a kernel of this that's going to be crowd pleasing, and I am a member of a crowd, and I have found myself pleased.
Sure.
Whether maybe it's not the height of artistic creativity, but there's definitely something to this that I wrote off.
There are a lot of incredibly smart things it's up to, and a lot of incredibly like thoughtful and interesting things that it's up to. I'm gonna I
think there's an artist in the middle of it fighting to like do something with it, which I think is always interesting because I think in a lot of studio movies you don't necessarily feel the voice of the director, writer in the movie.
And isn't that what this whole Star Wars Reborn project has been, somewhat?
In a way,
The Last Jedi does, it retreads a lot of ground, but I almost feel like maybe that's what JJ wanted to do, not necessarily
Force
these are the
Awakens.
checklist. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say Last Jedi again?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, The Force Awakens, like, you get a sense that this is kind of what he wanted to do rather than this is just
totally.
the checklist.
I agree.
But also, we've said it a million times, you had to have the buffer. You talk about, I use you saying this all the time about Batman Begins to The Dark Knight, where Batman Begins starts and we're shaking off the cobwebs of the Tim Burton movies a little. Like Gotham looks like Tim Burton-y a little still in that movie. Yeah. And then we move on and it's fucking Chicago, just flat out with nothing done to it. So it's like The Force Awakens needed to be like, you remember what Batman is. Also, here's these weird things where we're going to be a little heavier about.
It's weird that The Force Awakens did that.
Yeah, decided to tell us what Batman was. That was my least favorite part of The Force Awakens.
In Falcon? Yes, and this is Batman.
Yeah, this is the Batman.
Created by Bob Kane in
On my travels, I came across this comic book.
The Millennium Bat. Here it is. The Millennium Bat. But no, so Force Awakens had to be like, here, remember. Well, here, remember Star Wars. Ryan says that all the time. I love how he puts that, of that whole movie was about. Don't you remember how much you like Star Wars, you dumb shit? Yeah. Well, but not mean. Not even in a mean way. I don't know why I made it mean at the end.
Yeah.
But like, and then so we got that.
Subtext of all marketing. You stupid fuck. Come spend money.
It had to be. It's the first few steps going into the pool where those first few are warmer because there's less water, and you're like, oh, okay, nice. Oh, this feels nice.
Oh, huh.
And then you get
Chewie.
right, and then you get it exactly. Huh? Oh, Chewie's back. Oh, the Falcon. Oh. And then you get a little deeper, and you go on up to your waist in the second movie.
Snoke is Plagueis. I'm too deep.
I mean, in the larger, I do agree that I think in the larger, if I take a step back and see what they've done across the 3 films, I'm overall like enjoying what they're doing, with reservations, with issues, with all 3 of them. But I do think there's something interesting about, if I had to sort of go what they're doing and sort of look at it just very objectively, is like, okay, the first one, pretty much nothing but familiar stuff. Mm-hmm. And like that's what we're gonna do.
Nothing, but
yeah, exactly. And in a, I agree, understatedly quite smartly working in new things so that you can then go places with it. But big warm hug. You know what this is. Mm-hmm. A big Star Wars hug. Yeah. Then Rogue One, we're going to tonally do some different stuff. We're going to not a lot of lightsabers. We're going to do all these things, but it's basically a fan film still locked in all the original, tying into stuff But, we're going to try some, like, what if you got to know a bunch of, like, military characters and then we kill them all at the end? And
see the rebels be a little mean and ruthless.
And then in this one to go, okay, we won't just do Empire, we promise. And they do something that is different. I just hope that that's largely what it's doing.
It is. Of course it is.
That they keep going in this direction.
And it's funny that you say that, because I feel like my interpretation of this movie will be entirely grounded in the next one, which sucks, which is probably, I shouldn't have that opinion, but seeing how it all comes together, seeing how this becomes the connective glue between the first one, which, I mean, is what the middle part in a trilogy is.
I mean, I am excited by the fact that my favorite moment in this movie involves 3 new characters.
Sure.
As in, it's Snoke being killed by Kylo, and then he and Rey fight off a bunch of people. Yeah. And so for me to be excited to see more of that.
Right.
Yeah.
In the next one, sort of see more about their big confrontation and whatever they're going to do, and now that they can Skype each other through the Force.
Sure.
Right. All that stuff, where I sort of go, that to me is exciting, that I'm looking forward to the next one, not on the merit of I get to see Luke, and I get to see that I'm looking forward to it on the merit of the new characters.
And that's why I'm happy that Rey was not related to any of them.
Yep.
Because then that whole scene becomes like, okay, so this is the extension of Vader. Like, I like Kylo by way of that I liked Vader. Yeah. And now this is his grandson. And then for Rey to be just absolutely out of nowhere was great. It's something I noticed that I don't know if, I mean, I'm sure it was intentional, but I don't know what it means. When Rey looks at Kylo at the very end, when she shuts the thing, when she shuts the gate to
She's
the
giving
ship,
up on him.
Well, what's his name's dead. Snoke is dead. So what's bridging them through the Force? Mm-hmm. Still.
Yeah.
So was that a lie by Snoke?
And I said this in the last one too. My understanding was not that he was the only one connecting them and was listening to all their, he wasn't like phone tapping them. I think that it was that he was on purpose stoking Kylo's weakness so that he would, and being mean to him, like in the first scene of being like, take off your stupid mask, you're not Darth Vader, and weakening him so that when this connection formed, and maybe he kicked it off, maybe he connected them and now that's just like a thing, or maybe it was just the Force, but either way, Kylo being weakened was what let Rey come to Snoke's bedroom.
Sure. Yes.
Like she wouldn't have come and served herself on a platter like that if she didn't think Kylo was able to be saved.
Right.
So he was like weakening the defenses, but which ultimately like did.
Yep. I do agree though. I do agree. It's interesting because that's such a choice. It's such a choice to have the moment of I bridged your minds and then have them die and then still do that moment at the end. So clearly that's a 100% creative. That's not a mistake. That's
absolutely.
So as a result, I do agree. It will be interesting. Will they explain that more? Will they?
I think it's once you've been opened up to that and you've been connected to someone like that, it's like you probably couldn't just shut that off.
But for me, that also speaks that Kylo's not gone. I don't think he's gone because I feel like that
no one's ever
would
truly
be closed.
Gone.
Yeah, exactly. Like that would be closed entirely if he was done.
I think she
is closed to him. She's closing her she's literally closing herself off to him.
She says, I'm not gonna even try, and that's why he's so sad at the end.
I do hate the comedy at the end. Whatever, we've talked about that.
Comedy.
We talked about that before. You know, with him and Hux doing their like little gag at the end, like fire the cannons, fire the cannons, and he gives them the little look. It's like, yeah, this is funny, but is this the time for it?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I did like though how bad military decisions were from the bad guys were rooted in character. Like for instance, the sort of we're going to fire every gun we have just because of the rage he feels. And for instance, similar when he sees his dad's old ship, that his reaction is send everything, which is not smart.
Right.
But it feels rooted in how we know Kylo. If this unstable child was running a military operation, that he would be like, get that thing out. Yeah. You know, you sort of, again, it's interesting how I do agree it's convenient that all the fighters follow them and all that things. Having said that, it does feel rooted in
that's also
behavior that I think
now
from those characters.
He's so scary in that, like, you just don't know what the fuck this dude's gonna do.
Sure.
I agree. I for instance, I think when people say that he's not interesting, I'm always like, I kind of feel like he is, because it's things like in the next movie, if he's meeting one of the characters who, for instance, with Rey, it would be interesting. They'll continue their whole back and forth. But for instance, I wouldn't put it past Kylo to, I don't know, kill Poe.
Right.
Or, you know, just in terms of, I don't know what he'd do. Like, it's interesting how, but it always kind of feels like in sync with who Adam Driver is creating.
I read that this interesting take on it yesterday. I think it might have been like a fucking Tumblr or something, where the Empire is viewed more as they are the Nazis, whereas they're just like this authoritarian regime that tries to take power, whereas the First Order is neo-Nazis, which is worse because they're not like, they don't have their shit together. They're not this authoritarian regime, barely. They're like just the rage and like just the worshipping of the Nazis, of the most negative parts of the Nazis.
Right.
Which is like, it's not as imposing necessarily as the Emperor and the Empire and this all-encompassing force, but it is like, here's these fucking angry little boys with all the power in the galaxy. Yeah. Which is terrifying, maybe not in like the Lovecraftian kind of way of the Empire, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm just repeating myself.
Right.
But yeah, like in Star Wars, you get the sense that the Empire is impossibly, unfathomably large.
Right.
I mean, speaking of another thing, again, that for instance, to sort of talk again about something that, again, I appreciate what it's getting at, and that maybe it's not my favorite plot point in the movie, but I think back to DJ with his little stutter, and I sort
weird choice. By the
I agree,
way,
weird choice, and also again, not a huge fan of how he's introduced, not a huge fan of just But having said that, I do think there is something interesting going on with him, especially when the way he exits the scene is the sort of, you know, you blow him up today, you blow him up tomorrow, and sort of John Boyega saying you're wrong, and then maybe and leaving. There is something interesting about, I feel like that is just a massive commentary on the fence sitters in the age of when there's Nazis, sort of that you can't be the playing both sides, don't worry, like you'll figure it out, when one side is the First Order. You have to pick a side, and there does feel like there's a commentary going on about today, the world we live in, that like when one side are, you know,
like you both kill people. It's like, yeah, that's not okay. Whatever.
Yeah. You know, just an interesting, you know, slightly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do kind of feel like that's what it's getting at.
And it's a miracle the political messages that all get through in these movies. You know what I mean? Just the amount of committee, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and the broom kid at the end, you'll inspire the next generation and blah, blah. Sure. Like, you know, like there's a whole
broom
bunch
kid.
Broom child.
Which is very interesting. One of my favorite little bits in the movie where he force pulls the broom to him.
Yeah. Did you like?
Not even in a different shot. It's the same shot.
Yeah.
That's great.
First time we watched it, a bunch of people in the audience like, oh. Like just that little moment, just like the pulling the broom.
And something that made me sorry. I'm just like, this is the nitpicks episode. This is where I like going over all the things I just thought about.
But we are still though at the same rate. It's like. But we're seeing now the soundness of this thing, like that. It's not complete. Like I was just
setting suns. I don't know why it didn't hit me more in the first.
Oh, sure,
watch.
that it wasn't.
And I watched the second one. I'm like, oh fuck! Of course they would do this for Luke's
It got me in the first. Yeah.
Well, I remember as well, because what else was interesting is sort of, you know, people. Which again, I understand. I remember when I was talking with Jack before I went to go see it, I was like, I want to see him with that green fucking lightsaber. And then they gave me kind of in the flashbacks, but not really.
Right.
But then there were other little moments like, because I remember when he faded away and sort of you you didn't feel total devastation the way you might have expected to when one of your childhood heroes dies on screen. Having said that, then I reminded myself, well, the movie is kind of working overtime to tell us, well, it wasn't sadness, it was peace, and it was so the movie's telling us sort of no, this isn't a sad thing, but it's interesting because you still, on first viewing especially, go, that's strange, I'm not that sad, and Luke just died, so hence something's wrong. And then you sort of again, you look back at the movie and you realize, oh wait, it's actually telling me.
It's weird to think of Luke Skywalker as he's like the seminal film hero and he just died kind of in this movie, whatever. And it really isn't that big of a plot point necessarily.
I left more what's happening where I'm at now with the movie is that I'm not confused anymore. And I was confused for a while, for the first 2 viewings, really, where I was just like, I just didn't understand what it was really up to. And there was so much going on. It was just like a blur to me.
Yeah.
It was a soup with too many carrots and onions and little piece of chicken. I am hungry and I want to eat.
I do remember, indeed, it was funny because I remember watching a lot of it. Sort of, I don't know, you see, which again, maybe it's just the value you have when the toys you get to play with are Star Wars as a writer, but you look at the throne room fight and you go, this would be absolutely worthy of end of the movie in any other movie, like in terms of emotional, and here it's just really the end of Act 2. And then we're going to do a whole other thing on the planet. Like, and it's interesting because you'll watch it sort of, the first viewing is strange because you do find yourself just go, where's it going? And it's distressing in a strange way to not have a sense.
Why am I talking like this?
Hi, I'm George Lucas.
It's my movie watching voice.
Yes. It's my complete distressed viewer voice. What is this? But I don't know. Yeah, because there sometimes is in mainstream films, there is often a comfort in, okay, cool, now we're building up to the final confrontation.
Right.
And so to not necessarily know at all times, like, where's it going, is strange. Yeah. It's a strange experience in a big movie.
It was funny to me that so many people, that was what was exciting for them watching it. Like even Lyle said, like he was just shocked that it was Star Wars, and then he was like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Which is weird because it didn't strike me as I don't know what's going to happen and I'm excited by the mystery. It struck me as like, I feel like we're floating in space. I feel like we're just doing whatever.
Well, because I think to the first time I watched it and the throne room fight was so like a little overwhelming that I didn't even process that it was slow-mo
in the beginning
before they started fighting because I was just taking in Snoke's gone. Who's going to be the villain? and then afterwards when Kylo sort of doesn't turn and you go, oh, of course. That was like a good example sometimes of where I often found myself being, this is strange, why would they do that? And then Kylo behaves completely the way one actually would expect him to behave.
Right.
In a strange way.
Yeah, you snap back to reality yourself because you're like, yeah, they're fighting together.
Yeah. And this is going to be the movie. Yeah. And then, oh no, wait, no, of course not. Wait, no, the movie knows.
I thought I almost tricked it. I thought I got it.
That was, and then it's funny to me that this is why I'm more at peace now, is because but when I felt like ripped off weirdly. I must have been just digesting this on a weird level. I don't know if I was too deep or too shallow in the way I was trying to receive it. Because then when he come on now.
We're gonna have a lot of edits in this one. I mean,
all I'm saying is that I was
when I adjusted the deepness and the shallowness,
right,
several times, deep, shallow, and then I finally found
right, and then I came to my climax, if you could say. But I saw him then not being turned as annoying. Right. Like, then why did we just do that? Yeah. Why did you do this to me?
Right.
Like I was kind of what was the point of us doing that? I mean, and I understand now, but I don't know what was wrong.
It's an even darker sider thing to do.
But it was
just use the light side.
That was my stupid brain wasn't realizing that the hypocriticalness quote. I know it's not really a word. Is it? Is it hypocriticalness? Is that a word?
Hypocriticality.
Hypocrisy.
There you go.
No, the hypocriticality. God damn it. The bloody hypocriticality of it all. was on purpose, and it wasn't hypocritical. It was
people behaving
it was
as,
like resolution.
Sure.
Well, because I think if there's anything it isn't weak on, like if plot points are strange and structure at sometimes is weird and certain threads are, but it isn't weak on character. Sure. Characters behaving as you would kind of expect them to behave in interesting ways is almost the movie.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sort of, at the whole time.
Yeah.
Sort of, we're just watching this person do what they would do.
They're taking everyone.
That's a testament to Force Awakens. Though,
yes,
of,
I agree.
Really setting these characters, and even somebody like very small like Poe. I mean, I was sick of Poe by the end of this movie, but they gave us a little Poe in the first one. Everyone's like, we like Poe.
Give me that little Poe.
And then everything he does in this one, I guess it makes sense.
He's more than just good pilot guy. He's cocky, needs to learn a lesson pilot guy, etc.
Which I would reserve to say that he didn't pay enough for what he did.
I think he's one of the weakest arcs in that.
I mean, I always remind myself of the fact that, again, it's little things like when I look into that opening scene, for some reason, one of the things that's always on my mind now in terms of like just internal logic, and not that this is the issue with what you guys just said, because like you guys are talking about like a larger storytelling beat, but I always remind myself for some reason when I'm watching it now, when he rejects Leia's orders and just turns it off, and sort of I'm always reminded of the fact that she can just patch through to the other pilots and tell them to call off.
Yeah, guys, Poe's losing it.
Yeah, like in this sort of like, I'm gonna do this. No, you're not. Like that's how that works, really.
Right. This is the general.
Yeah, we all have.
Hello. The guy who runs the army. It's me. Don't do that. Yeah, but again, suspend your disbelief.
Yes.
Bombs in space.
Good luck telling me what to do when I'm not in my ship. He jumps out. What?
His head explodes.
Oh, what the hell happened to Poe?
Star Wars really subverting expectations. Really subversive filmmaking.
It was weird how Poe jumped out of his spaceship in the beginning.
There was something I was telling Dom that is in my head now every time I see the scene, but there's when we first come to Canto Bight, and it's a place filled with the worst people in the galaxy, and then it cuts to those two like with their chinking their glasses, and then it cuts to that ship that they're on, and the ship just sort of begins to go off a waterfall, but then starts flying because it's Star Wars, and then it just pans across, and then we see Rose and Finn's ship come in. And for some reason, my brother and I had the same thought where, wouldn't it be amazing if that ship just went off the waterfall, but then the camera just keeps going.
It's like a tragedy.
We're not gonna.
And the camera keeps going, finds Rose and Finn, and follows them.
And the movie just keeps going.
And it doesn't address it whatsoever. It's just like, what
the hell happened to those people?
Like, imagine how profoundly everyone would be talking about it. Everyone would be saying, hey, did you like the movie? Sure, but remember that moment when they were establishing what Canto Bight was, and they just showed an entire ship of people crash? And
why were they on the ship? What were they doing?
Did they know? They looked calm. It was really. Was it a malfunction? Is it something they do for fun?
There is something funny about like in an infinite. It's Douglas Adams of like we're in an infinite universe. There has to be some species that kills himself for fun. Like it's like the funnest, silliest thing in the world to just die. Yeah, like dress in your nicest clothes and drive a ship off a waterfall.
That sounds pretty all right. Like if you know you're gonna die.
Yeah, I mean,
what if it was a ship of terminally ill aliens?
That's when it cuts to that. That's when it cuts to that guy who I'm also strangely a fan of after 5 viewings, but it's weird.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the fucking
But
this is why the toys get so minutia, because people like you that see them and you're like, I want to toy the guy with the mustache.
I'm actually thinking about.
Know his name.
I'm thinking about the guy when it's like, I told those two you can't park on a public beach, because I think it's stupid. Why is he not speaking an alien language as any other character would in Star Wars? And then for some reason it really cracks me up when he shows up at the end and goes, oh, those are the shuttle shuttle parkers, and then they zap them and he is surprised that that's what happened, as if he like wasn't expecting them to be arrested for like telling the officers. It's again like one of those things where I'd go, it's weird. It's not particularly great.
That also is not to take that funny thing, but it's also, and this is still a thing that I do like take issue with the movie. It feels like it over explains things that you didn't need to tell me exactly how it worked. Like even the hyperspace thing, you didn't need to explain every bit of that. Like I almost feel like, and I think it maybe is just Rian Johnson. I think he's interested in
certain things.
Because even immediately, I remember in the first battle, they talk a lot about the actual technicality of whatever they're doing and why certain bomb, blah, blah, blah. I don't even...
He's clearing all of our surface cannons.
Right. And it was...
Whoever that was, that guy was great. I like that guy a lot. The first
Fire at the base!
Yes.
I don't know who you're talking about.
The first general
Captain
of the...
Hannity.
Oh, yeah.
where their lights are all red.
dreadnought.
Yeah. But that is like a set too of like, why... Like why wouldn't what you needed to happen was that they park somewhere they can't, they're infiltrating this wealthy planet. Like was really the first story solution to be that there's someone who says, oh, they can't park there. Like you couldn't have done like just that the police show up at the ship and they're like, where are these people? And then they go and try and find them. And then we know that the whole time they're in this casino, the cops are
police
looking
are looking
for.
But just think about how fucking
also always for a fun fact. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, whether you heard through Jack, but there is a woman in the casino. Have you guys heard that?
No.
Okay, so there was a woman in the casino. It's an actual close up of her. It's just her putting coins in a slot. She was in Project Library. She was the lady. She was the lady who becomes the crazy librarian at the end and tries to shoot our main characters.
That's cool.
Like and it was a very strange experience for all of us to sort of be watching the movie and go, like we all just stopped and at a moment.
That's awesome.
And like obviously it's ridiculous because she just has like one shot. And she's just a background actress.
I don't know.
I wanted to walk up to Rian Johnson and be like, hey, so we're on the same level. We've directed the same woman. At some
right.
Are we going for the same joke here? Where the fat opera lady who was all with the tiny skinny arms and goes, ooh, was also in the Project Library.
No, I was going to say similar. I had the same experience because when Luke he's my dad. My dad is Luke Skywalker. So, I mean, I don't know.
I had the same thing. It's pretty cool. Just like, there's the one, oh gosh.
Strange.
I like the aliens in a Canto.
Yeah, we didn't talk a lot about, we wanted to last time, all the creatures and stuff, the new aliens and all the weird, like, it was awesome in this one.
Yes, we'll do that and then we'll get out of here.
Sorry,
Taking so much of your time. Good. But I liked the Porgs. I think they were great.
I like Porgs too.
And we talked about them a little bit last time.
I don't get why people are so,
I think it's how.
Did you forget about the Ewoks? This franchise has always been a bit silly.
Well, I think the reason why so many people are so like, I will defend every Porg. I will fucking die for the Porgs. Yeah. It's because of how negative people, like just immediately how polarizing it was when they came out. Like, there's another cute fucking creature. It's like, yeah, of course there is.
And why not?
It's great. I love it, and they're cute, and they're good. I agree. And I like that they were puppets. Every time they hop on something, you can tell it's a puppet. Somebody's controlling it, making it do that.
Yeah.
With the sad, I didn't like the sad joke.
I keep being reminded of the first viewing of this film and sort of realizing that a lot of it you were sort of catching up with. So, for instance, oh, it's Yoda. Holy shit, it's puppet Yoda.
Yeah.
And it was similar with the Porgs, where it was a little bit like, oh, they look a bit funny. Oh, it's because they're all practical.
It's because they're real.
Yeah,
they're there.
Fuck.
Like, little things like that. But I mean, the joke with Chewie about to eat one is great. The joke with one of them.
I love that joke. Like, I thought it was a little mean, but like reflecting and watching the one's reaction, where it goes and it zooms in. I'm just, it's a puppet. This makes it kind of funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For some reason, for the fact that there's a guy controlling it and it's not just like a CG creature.
Yeah.
All I was thinking was, I want a pulled porg sandwich.
pulled porg.
I want a little porg belly.
I didn't the first time process how funny that first shot of them is after Luke has thrown the lightsaber away and one of them stepping about to blow the other one through the face.
Did you see the concept book?
The
art book?
That it happens originally?
Yes.
Yep.
Jesus Christ.
They were going to kill one?
Well, one of the concept arts from that scene is there's like 5 jumping and the one just has like the beam through its eyeball and they're all still playing on it.
Oh my
Which
God.
Is fucking mean. And it's like, that would be mean if it's in the book.
For some reason,
it's mean in the book. Like if you give that kid that book and they're like, oh God.
That for some reason feels equivalent to what I just pitched. The idea that there would be an unexplained death. Just that like in a quick insert of the lightsaber that you'd have.
Porg got his brain poked out the back of his head by the lightsaber. It's fucking wild.
Yeah.
Because I think the original pit, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember reading in that same little blurb that they were supposed to be like these death-prone creatures. Like,
I joked when we did our last podcast that I thought that was a funny running gag. They don't quite do it, but that they're just like always almost dying because they keep doing stupid shit, and like they're in the Falcon and they're flying around. The one's biting wires, so I guess they do it. The one's biting the friggin' wires.
Yeah.
And
I love Chewie. I do like Chewie's relationship with them. The way he's sort of almost
he's just like a dad.
Like he just doesn't want them. Like and they're all around him.
They're also the most Henson ass characters in years of like these cute little like they're adorable and they're trying to kill themselves all the time. Like they're always doing
they're all almost dying.
There is this dark twist that I didn't see coming. Like I saw it and I was like, oh, this is the cute, silly, funny creatures. And then when they were doing stuff like that consistently, I'm like, oh, this is a bit. They're aware that these are the cute, silly creatures, and I really love that. I thought it was one of the strongest choices in the base of the movie. But yeah, I wish that they would bring back more space creatures. I feel like we haven't done enough of them in the last two movies. Yeah, a lot of humans.
It was a nice touch as well to indeed sort of again. It's that strange thing where for any reservations I have about the Canto Bight stuff, I do always find myself I find myself reminding myself that. Yeah, it's kind of cool that it wasn't a bar again, right? And that it was a casino, and there was other creatures, and that exactly here's where the Star Wars creativity stuff comes in. You know, this world of. So yeah, I agree. Like it's always it's strange because I think everything. It's why this movie is kind of interesting is because anything that I might not love, but if I were to take it out, I'd lose a bunch of stuff I do like.
Right.
And vice versa. I think if I were to isolate just a thing I like, I'd probably lose other stuff that worked for me or exactly like. So it's interesting. It's always like,
and I'm wondering if maybe this could all be fixed just with, you make them leave the ships earlier. Like I don't know. Maybe they find out they can be tracked through hyperspace earlier before they even make the jump. Who knows? You do lose that bit of tension there, but giving them like this whole arc that ultimately concludes in failure and then leads to the third act of the movie. I think is a lot more interesting than just like, they go and they meander here for a while and then they come back.
I mean, speaking of a script edit, like it's that thing that we were talking about where, first thing I do is like, okay, lose the bit where they call Mars.
Right.
Like why? Just Poe just knows that there's someone on Canto Bight.
Exactly.
That wouldn't bother anyone.
No.
And then they also had to come up with like, it's a union dispute. Like, why can't they just get Maz? It's like you could tell that was a note there of like, if they're going to call Maz, why can't they just
why can't you
bring her? Yeah. And it's like, well, then why just not
bring her?
Have her at all? Yeah. Like, but
either bring her or
don't. This is another layer of that over explaining things. I didn't need you to like go out of your way to tell me why a reason.
And I'm thinking about it economically because I'm like, all the while this is screen time. Like this is tick, 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 tick. This is every moment that I get to spend with these characters.
It also is interesting because in the Mars clip, for instance, one thing they are continuing with her, like in that little bit that I do like from Force Awakens, is that she's a bit of a creepy old lady, a bit of a creepy sexual old lady. Because like the fact that her first thing in Force Awakens is like, "Where's my boyfriend?" I like that Wookiee. And then in this one, it's the yes. He can, and it's clearly sexual, sort of, and that you have that reaction shot of
I just don't love how she looks in that thing because it's like
it's also a bit weird how the camera works.
I like when
you're like, is there a little camera following her around?
Exactly.
Remember that scene in Last Jedi where Poe turns on an animated movie?
Yeah,
yes. It's like, let's just watch this real quick. It's my favorite. It's a new Pixar short.
Yeah.
No, it's true. Anyway. And also, Union Dispute wasn't the funniest thing. Right. Like that felt a little bit like. That's a placeholder. We'll find something funnier, and then
I thought it was like, because for whatever reason, I always thought the line was trade dispute because I thought it was like a to the this is what the first three movies were about. I know you've forgotten that's what the first three movies were about, but hey, remember, but it is Union Dispute, and I was like, oh, that's not very. You're right. It's time. We're gonna do three-headed.
You guys couldn't see it, but I just very emotionlessly banged my hand on the table, and then there was consequences.
Dom built a small fortress out of water bottles and his phone and just knocked them down to signify he was done.
It was a protest, really.
I need to make boom boom, so we're going to do a three-headed critic. We're going to get the hell out of here. Who's ready to go? We're going to start it with Tim. You remember this game, right?
Yes, I remember this game.
Tim, Dom, Tim, Dom, Tim.
Okay.
Dom.
Shit. Who's the first Tim?
That one.
Okay.
Star
Wars
was
a
fascinating
thing
that
nearly
bought
itself
a
one
in
a million
chance
at
winning
the
best
ever.
God damn it.
Okay, wait, can we recap real quick? Star Wars was a fascinating thing that almost became,
but almost bought itself
a
chance at becoming a 1 in a million best. What was it? But you did best, right? Okay. 1 in a
million best. Movie?
You know, weirdly enough, I think that serves as a pretty profound metaphor for our issues with the film.
Yeah.
Where too many words.
We didn't quite get to...
Like, it made sense where we
didn't quite follow the right structure. And you're like, where's this going? Is it really going anywhere?
And then it did, but...
All right. We'll do one last one.
All right, let's try another one.
Oh, my God. We'll go Dom to me, Tim to Dom.
I love how Dom was stuck for a second. I know. And then I was like, good. And then you managed to come me in. I was like, shit.
I wanted to say Powerball.
I thought you were going to say Oscars. And I was like,
winning the Powerball.
All right. I'll do me, Dom, Tim, me, Dom.
Good.
This
didn't
manage
to
forget
its
lineage
and did
forget
its lineage.
Powerball.
All right, this has been
pretty good.
It didn't forget its lineage, but it did forget its lineage. I guess, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard here, please go to www.reasonablebeef.com.
Wait,
Patreon.
Wait, what?
Hey, if you like what you heard here, please go to www.patreon.com/reasonablebeef. Give what you can. $1 gives you access to bonus beef. There will be a new episode this month. It's going to be good. We do also have a website, but I mean, I don't think there's really anything there.
You gotta start posting.
Do you have anything cool coming out?
No.
Tim H, anything fucking sick coming out?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, follow me on Twitter, I guess. I'll be posting a Funny or Die sketch in the nearby future.
I'm in that. That counts.
Oh, this was fun. I know the sketch.
Yes.
It's good to have you back.
Yeah, man. Excited to be back. Let's make some things.
Hell yeah. Let's do it. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having a wonderful night. And it's good to be back in 2018. We're going to have more beef. This was kind of our ease-in, buffery episode. I had a good time.
The porgs were really my only demand. When we made the sale with Disney, I said, I'm going to need you to have the porgs in it. They said, what? I left the room.
George, we've given you $4 billion. No, but in specifically the third movie you make, there will be porgs. What are they? I don't know.
I don't know how much clearer is in this dossier. It's just like a manila envelope. He opens it up and says the word porgs.
Fascinating.